it was, but I guessed it. It was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. My house was about 20 minutes away, which wasn't too far as the houses in this area are quite spread out. The rain and absence of streetlights made visibility difficult, so I was driving cautiously and slowly. 5 minutes into my driving, I approached a traffic light, but a blue car on the opposite side of the intersection was particularly blocking the road. Its headlights were on, yet it remained stationary at a green light. I couldn't tell if there was something wrong or if the driver might be asleep. When the lights changed, I cautiously moved forward, maneuvering around the car. As I passed, I tried to sneak a glance inside the car, but the rain on my window obscured most of my view. Moments after I passing it, I noticed that the blue car had turned and was now following me, so it wasn't broken down after all. I kept my eye on the mirrors. I wouldn't call myself a paranoid person, but something about the situation felt staged. A minute later, the headlights from the car behind me grew lighter. The headlights from the car behind me grew brighter, closing in to what felt like just a few feet from my bumper. In weather like this, that made me extremely uncomfortable. I looked back at the road, but then noticed a small light flickering on my dashboard. It was a warning that one of my tires was low on air. That was a common signal, but it seemed oddly timed given the circumstances. I glanced back at my mirror and saw the car still tailing me, its headlights so bright that I could barely see the actual vehicle. I was only 4 or 5 minutes from home, nearing the entrance to my neighborhood, when my dashboard started flashing again. This time it was a flat tire alert. My stomach dropped as I put everything together. I was almost certain that the car behind me had done something. I drove for another minute, hoping to get closer to home, but I could feel my car sinking to left. I was particularly driving on the same rims at that point. I had no choice but to pull over, and the car behind me did the same. I should have called someone immediately after, but I was so fixated on what the person behind me was doing that it didn't even cross my mind. Even if I had called for help, it probably wouldn't have prevented that what happened next. Once parked, 3 doors opened from the blue car, and 3 men stepped out. I had only a few seconds to prepare and react, but I felt helpless and defenseless. They rushed toward my car, 2 on my side and 1 on the other. One of the men approached my window, shouting for me to open the door while pointing a gun at me. Everything happened so fast that I felt dazed. I began to reach for my door, but the men at the back smashed something against the window, shattering it. Then reached in to open the back door. They were all shouting, both at me and at each other. The man in the back reached across the other back door. The man in the back reached across the other back door and then leaned in front of me to open my door. I sat there with my hands up, signaling that I wasn't a threat. I know there was no way out of this, even if I had a weapon. Once my door swung open, the man with the gun yanked me out and slammed me into the ground, oddly enough, as I laid on the cold. As I lay on the cold, wet pavement, my only thought was about how freezing and soaked it was, not about a gun being pressed into my head, or the fact that I was being robbed and beaten. It felt like my mind was trying to distance itself from the trauma of the situation. I wasn't on the ground for long before my men by the car called out, and the guy holding me down struck me in the back of the head, causing me to ricochet off the pavement. I wasn't sure if he hit me with the gun as I was already known. To my surprise, I didn't lose consciousness. I heard the sound of the car doors closing and then the engine revving as they drove away. Still dazed, I rolled over and attempted to pick myself up, leaving me with no choice but to drive my damaged car home to call the police. When I arrived home, my car was dented and my rims were ruined. The investigation went nowhere, determining only that the suspects had initially placed small tires blocking the road at the intersection where I had passed. I was lucky to have hit only one spike, and I was grateful that the damage wasn't worse than it could have been. It seemed they had planned to ambush me as soon as I hit the trap, but at the end, it didn't make a difference. I work at a small convenience store situated at the edge of the quaint shopping strip. It's like a local version of a 7-Eleven. For a while, I had morning shifts that began at 3 a.m. and wrapped up at 1 p.m. I took this hour helping customers, restocking shelves, and taking out the trash, which mostly meant I had plenty of downtime. It was winter when this incident occurred, but in my warmer state, it usually rains instead of snows. That morning, there was a light drizzle, enough to keep most people away. I often spent these quiet mornings leaning against the front of the store, smoking to pass the time, although I knew I shouldn't do it. No one was around to stop me. The shopping district had about 8 or 9 other stores, all of which kept normal hours, so none open until around 6 or 7 in the morning. So, when a car pulled into the parking lot while I was smoking, I naturally assumed they were heading to my store. I stopped out my cigarette, tossed in the trash, and headed inside, anticipating a customer. Minutes ticked by without anyone coming in. I stepped back outside to check on the car. It was still there, parked nearby with its headlights off. To my surprise, no one seemed to be inside. The rain fell lightly, and the other stores remained dark and closed. Feeling confused, I glanced around one last time. I saw no one and went back. Feeling confused, I glanced around one last time, saw no one, and went back inside. After half an hour of solitude, I found myself standing behind the counter, lost in thought. I glanced at the clock. It had only been a little over an hour since I figured it was a good time to check the trash bins. So I grabbed the card and made my rounds, replacing the full bags with the fresh ones. As I walked, I heard a faint click from outside, like something breaking or snapping. With the rain drumming on the roof, it was hard to pinpoint the sound source. But it didn't seem significant, just one of those odd noises buildings make. I finished gathering the trash and wheeled the car to the back, unlocking the door that led to the dumpster. Sighing, I noticed that the rain had intensified. Perfect timing, right? I pushed the cart to the down floor, to the dumpster, tossed in the trash, and turned head back inside when something caught my eye. The door to the store next door was ajar. I had never seen anyone there before 6. Curiosity got the better of me, and I returned to my store to escape the rain. I picked at the neighboring store's door. All lights were off, and it appeared locked and empty, just as it always was in the hours. After a few moments of contemplation, I decided to check it out. I walked back to the open door. Inside, the space was dim, leading into what looked like a small utility room. Another door likely led to the main store area. I stepped inside cautiously, making sure not to seem like I was trying to intrude. From within, I could hear someone moving around, rummaging through drawers and creating mess. Alarm bells started ringing in my mind. Hey, everything was... Hey, is everything quickly stepped back outside into the rain, making a beeline for my store. As I reached the door, I noticed something strange. The handles were missing. All that remained was an empty hole with it wrapped in. Glancing now, I saw the broken handle wedged against the door. Panic surged through me. I rushed back into my store, locked all the door, and called 911 and my store manager. While waiting for help, I pressed my ear against the bar that connected to it. While waiting for help, I pressed my ear against the wall that connected to our stores. Listening intently, I could hear the frantic movements of the intruder, now aware that I had called for help. Things were getting chaotic. It sounded like they were tossing items around in a frenzy. Moments later, I saw flashing lights and heard sirens approaching. The footsteps in the neighboring store hurried toward the back, followed by loud shouting that I assumed came from police. I cautiously opened the door. After a minute, witnessing a less chaotic scene as the officer swarmed the area, I thanked from their swift response and private my account of the situation. The man that I arrested was found with a pillowcase full of nearly $6,000 worth of stolen goods. He also had an empty firearm. Various tools for breaking and entering. To my surprise, he had also attempted to break into the store 2 spots down. While it was unclear if the lights in my store were on, so it seemed a weapon to target. However, officers discovered the significant scratches on the back of the door and the possible previous attempts. As I stood there, I relieved but shaken. I realized just how close I had come to a dangerous situation. I'm 24 now, but up until 3 months ago, I lived alone with my dog, Bear, in a cozy townhouse. I moved in when I was 22, having a decent job that allowed me to rent my first place. I liked my little home, and for 2 years, everything was perfect, until one terrifying night changed everything. It was a gloomy, rainy evening, and I had the day off. I was lounging on my living room, scrolling through my phone. It was around 8 p.m., about an hour before my usual bedtime. Bear, my fluffy little dog, had been sitting by the back door, looking out. He suddenly started whining and ran up to me, which meant he needed to go outside. I got up, opened the door, let him out, and I stood in the kitchen, waiting. Although it was just a townhouse, had kept the bear from running off, so I didn't worry too much. But then, not even 20 seconds after I let him out, I heard him whimper and bark, a scared, desperate bark. I rushed to the door and saw Bear sprinting back toward me, with his tail between his legs. I quickly opened the door, letting him in. My heart was pounding as I scanned the backyard, expecting to see a coyote or some other animal, but there was nothing. I checked Bear to make sure he was okay and locked the door. He never acted like this, which made me really worried. For the rest of the night, Bear sat on my lap, and I tried to calm down, but every few minutes he'd perk up, his ears twitching, staring at the windows and the doors around the room. I didn't know what was bothering him, but it put me on edge. About 40 minutes later, Bear turned his head onto the window behind me, his ears flattening as he growled low. "What is it, Bear?" I whispered, turning around, and there, right up against the glass, was a man staring back at me. He was so close, his breath fogging up the window. I screamed, jumping back, The man bolted away down the side of the house, and the bear barked loudly, agitated by the sudden chaos. I slammed the blinds shut and quickly went round, closing the others. Walked back downstairs. I wasn't sure if they left the house or not.